It's the greatest thing that a conservative wannabe wants to have.
It's a quote-unquote badge of honor.
Absolutely. He should wear it as a tattoo across his forehead and buy stickers and bumpers. But it's pretty outrageous, some of the things that Rush Limbaugh just said. You know, we are going to need whoever to be the president to work across the party line. So, but it helps him in the short term.
Katie, you worked for Rudy Giuliani in his presidential campaign. As you well know, McCain had a lot of problems with conservatives. The outrage from conservative talk show hosts who have been skeptical of John McCain has been anger today at the New York Times. So it helps him, right?
Well, I think that's right, Nora, and I think what you're seeing is a galvanization of Republicans coming to John McCain's defense. I think this has truly been mishandled by the New York Times. Either it was handled clumsily, which is the best case scenario, or this is truly a political calculation by the newspaper to do the most damage possible to the Republican Party. And in either scenario, I think what you're seeing are Republicans really coming to John McCain's defense, and in the long run, I think this is going to help the senator. I think it's truly unfortunate. I think you're hearing quite a lot of anger and disgust, frankly, coming out of the McCain campaign this morning about a story that it's important to remind people is over 8 years old and is being, rehashed now by the New York Times. They've had this story since December, and I think the question begs to be asked is what has changed from December until now that has made it now suddenly appropriate for the New York Times to run this story as an A1 story. I think the New York Times has a lot of explaining to do here.
I don't think that is all that damaging for John McCain. And frankly, if you look at the time, they really wanted to, have a zinger, they would have done it on the eve of the primary in New Hampshire or when he was sort of down and counted out. So I don't think their timing was that big of a deal. The guy's already got the nomination locked up. So frankly, I think that they were probably a little clumsy, but they felt it necessary to run the story for some reason.
Katie, let me ask you, because you have been involved in dealing with the media. That's what your job was for Rudy Giuliani and in the past at the White House. When a story like this sits for as long as it does inside the New York Times, which is one of the criticisms, and that it was on Drudge, there was a hint of it on Drudge. The McCain campaign hired Bob Bennett, of course, who is a well-known attorney, to push this back, and then it finally appears like today. What are likely the conversations that go on? McCain at first said today in his press conference that he hadn't talked to the New York Times, but then admitted and apologized that he had in fact spoken with the editor of the New York Times, Mr. Keller. How much does a campaign push back on a story like this that they believe is bunk?
Well, I think having read the story 3 or 4 times this morning and still asking myself where the there was, what you have is a story that was filled with innuendo. It was filled with gossip. It seems to be better placed on the pages of a tabloid than it does on the front page of what used to be the gold standard in journalism, the New York Times. So I suspect that there was a lot of pushback coming from the McCain campaign. I know if a reporter came to me with some former disgruntled employees talking on the record about a candidate clearly trying to air grievances years after an event passed, sure, I'd push back on it, and I suspect that's what the McCain campaign has been doing, and I think to their credit they were pushing back on this story hard.